Hello everyone, this is Tom Fox, back for another episode, and I'm absolutely thrilled today to have Vince Walden, President and CEO of konaAI. Vince, welcome.
Hi, Tom. Glad to be here, as always.
Vince, you were at a pre-conference workshop, and I wanted to visit with you about that. So could you tell us the title and maybe go through the conference from your perspective?
Yeah, thanks, Tom. We're both here in Washington, D.C. at the ACI's annual Anti-Corruption and FCPA conference. But that pre-conference yesterday was a big deal for me because my passion is around AI and data analytics. And ACI put on a pre-conference specifically entitled AI and Data Analytics for Anti-Corruption Compliance. It was right up my alley. konaAI, we were the key sponsor and hosted a breakfast talking about the issues, etc. But allow me to tell and share with your audience a little recap of some of the topics and highlights from that event, because I think that would be I think it was really interesting. First off, it was co-chaired by two very well-known people in the data analytics space when it comes to compliance, and many of you guys know Matt Galvin, who formerly was with the DOJ and is now a partner with Steptoe and Johnson. I've known Matt for years, and he does a lot of innovation and advocacy and evangelism, I should say, just like I do, around the use of data analytics for compliance, effectiveness, and measurability. Also, he co-chaired it with Joe Kazowinski, who is Senior Vice President of Risk and Analytics at MasterCard. And boy, the audience was in for a treat when they heard this. Some of the analytics and proactive compliance monitoring, machine learning, and data analytics techniques that they're using at MasterCard, of course, not just for anti-fraud detection and for consumer fraud, but just within the organization around anti-corruption, was quite sophisticated. And hearing some of those stories was great. But then allow me to go through, we had about 6 or so panels during the day. And again, I share this with your audience to think about, these were on the minds of about 100 people, all either chief compliance officers or heads of analytics within compliance. So these were the topics on their mind. The first session was one size does not fit all. How to design an actionable AI and data analytics blueprint that aligns with your company's infrastructure. And we heard speakers from Northrop Grumman, from Pfizer, from Medtronic, from FedEx, and talking about that theme was data quality. How to get started, understanding and mapping the data, and getting buy-in, and the themes around start small and grow and demonstrate success was a key highlight of that. That one size does not fit all. That means don't boil the ocean. Start with vendor payments, and maybe not for the entire company, but from one perhaps ERP system, from one SAP or Oracle instance, and then demonstrate success and grow from there. Any comments? Feel free to interrupt me too. I don't want to comment the whole time.
No,
Keep going.
Fascinated.
The next session was held by actually 3 people that I know quite well: Ken Feinstein from JS Held and Jim Janko from Comcast. Unfortunately, and Yulia Blonsky, she's from Westinghouse. Unfortunately, she had travel issues, couldn't make it. But this one, garbage in, garbage out. Best practices for data collection, cleansing, and monitoring. Imagine when you're doing the analysis and you're so excited to get your dashboards or your machine learning and AI up and running, only to realize when you're presenting to management that you've only captured half the data, or the columns have shifted and you've got all the dates wrong. And how embarrassing that is. In my 25 years, I cannot honestly look you in the eye and say that's never happened to me. It happens to all of us. And what happens is we get so excited with looking at the data and doing the analysis, we forget to validate it and put it through the rigorous steps it needs to do to make sure we understand our data first. And that was really where this dialogue, it was a great discussion around data integrity. Doing the validation checks, making sure that, hey, if we're doing a 12-month look-back period, the first thing we do when we get the data is we inspect it to make sure the date ranges are for 12 months so that we're not surprised. And so data validation, which was pivotal to an effective anti-corruption program, compliance monitoring, because you got to trust your results. Then we moved on to a little bit of data analytics and AI implementation. So journeys and examples of companies that have taken their programs through, and they moved through a partner, Greg Andry from Davis Polk, spoke, as well as the co-chair, Joe Joe Casanowski from MasterCard, and they shared about a half dozen stories of companies that have deployed data analytics and how they went through their journey. Even Joe talked about his journey over 9 years. Started with ad hoc Excel analytics, moving to dashboards, moving to then a functional center. And what he was talking about, I think it was most impressionable, was that when he started, he would travel around the world, show various business stakeholders the analytics that they report, and they say, hey, I like that. Can you build one for me? And then, can you build one for me? And can you build one for me? And then it became an operational function or an office where he had a few staff that grow through it, and that's how the maturity through compliance function grew, starting with ad hoc analytics to then just a few dashboards to then machine learning and a bunch of steps. And he said successes and failures along the way. I made a comment actually and raised my hand talking about and clarifying for the audience that data analytics is not a project. A project is what you hire consultants for example. A project has a defined start date and stop date. If you think about your company's engineering or manufacturing line, is that a project or is that a business process? You don't stop marketing. You don't stop engineering or manufacturing. Those are business processes. And data analytics in the context of compliance monitoring is just that as well. It goes along with the business. It's a business process. So you need to think about what can we do in-house from a software, from a people process, software technology perspective to make sure that this is a sustainable thing, not just a start and stop type of thing. Your auditors do audits. Those are projects. That's a defined start and stop. But compliance as a second line of defense, that's an important process that you want to keep going. And in fact, two of those journeys, I was really happy and impressed with Dion forgive me for, let me rephrase that. Jean Asdorgan, that's right. I should do better on that. But he was from Honeywell, who has a very impressive program. He co-presented with Emily Meldrum Taylor from CERTA, where they both have a very mature due diligence onboarding process, but also he built out a mature in-house transaction monitoring platform that he described, which was quite impressive. Kudos to Dion, and that was one of the case studies. As we got into the afternoon, it's funny, crash and learn. I love these topics. Crash and learn, firsthand accounts of data program debacles and valuable lessons learned from what not to do. And Matt Galvin led a great discussion with Karen Squatus from Stryker, and they talked about some of the war stories, what worked, what didn't work. Matt talked about his days at AB InBev on some of the things, but again, you learn from your mistakes, and so that was one of the key things. And then also what it takes, a panel of what it takes to leverage machine learning, anomaly detection, and predictive analytics for global anti-corruption and compliance. Great discussion from Mara Sen from GE Healthcare, my personal friend Aditya Yarami from Google, Joe Turner, who's another great guy from Sony, got a lot of experience, and they shared some of their experiences on what it takes to move to that next level of machine learning, predictive analytics, and letting the data kind of work for you. As we get closer to the end in the afternoon, next-gen tools for how companies are now using generative AI for smarter monitoring, enhanced risk detection, and cross-company intelligence. We heard speakers from Carnival, Hayward Holdings. My own Brian Judas from konaAI was one of the panelists, and it was moderated by Jose Ansanye from Davis Polk. So that was a really cool conversation on what next-gen tools are. You can see it's leading up, well, again, it's leading up to my presentation, Tom, which was actually a demo. I got up there and I had 20 minutes of glory to basically say, look, we've been talking about analytics all day. Let me show you what it actually looks like. And I took the audience through a journey of maturity. When you say AI, this was one of the key takeaways. What do you mean by AI? Now, AI's been around for 20 years, as you all know. What's been hot is generative AI, but I talked about examples through using konaAI, my software, is an example. Machine learning, which is just like technology-assisted review for email. When you find smoking gun emails, find me more like this. It works great for payments and invoices and transactions. Find me more like this. We talked about neural networks. What made Palantir so successful was the ability to take multiple data sources and find what they have in common through link analysis. Show me a bank account that matches 3 other vendors and an employee. That's an issue, right? And so link analysis is another great way to use AI to find hidden patterns in relationships. Now, the big hype, as we know, since 2022 is generative AI, and that is where we're now able to create content. But I helped the audience articulate a little bit, and again, it hadn't really been discussed before this, to have a good large language model that is domain specific within your group, not going out to OpenAI, that indexes all your policies or all your hotline data or all your transactional data. It needs to be in a RAG model, which stands for Retrieval Augmented Generation, or RAG. And I took the audience through this workflow that when you have this done right, then and only then can you get to the maturity of agentic AI. So if you set it up right, not just with an LLM, but through RAGs, even what's called CAGs, context augmented retrieval, which is like data feeds. Think of CAG as a river flowing of data, like your transactions, your payments data, your hotlines data, etc. And a RAG is your static data, like a lake, which is all the DOJ findings or your policies, where it's only updated every month or quarter or year, whereas a CAG is continuous feeds. Only that is when you can have agentic AI that will perform tasks, not only give you insights, but perform certain tasks for you. And we showed examples of how you could have due diligence, clear due diligence faster, put investigative work plans together faster for you, faster than any type of leveraging all sorts of historical content. So that was, and again, I know it's a long stretch. We finally concluded with a session on AI governance. So we took them through data, all the day was through detailed understanding the data, then we got more sophisticated through AI and generative AI. I gave a demo, and then the last session, led by Sarah Floyd Favaro and Patience Bin, Sarah from HCL Tech and Patience Bin from Zoetis, 2 very impressive individuals talking about AI governance and ethical use dilemmas. So establishing ownership, oversight, and operational guardrails for generative AI usage. And so that helped, I'll put that, the stone cap or the cornerstone, the keystone, thank you, the right word. They put the keystone on the event of, all right, now we've talked about all this great technology, how do we make sure that we put the right governance and controls in place? That was a long-winded answer, and I think that's the entire interview, Tom, but I just took you through a really great conference yesterday, and we were nice to celebrate. After the reception, I hosted about 24 of some of the attendees over at Bond 45 for drinks afterwards. So all in all, we had a blast, and I was exhausted at the end of this event.
Vince, I wanted to thank you both for helping to put on the workshop yesterday and then taking the time to visit with me today.
Tom, thank you. I appreciate you letting me summarize the event.